What's up, everybody? Welcome to Something Like Barbecue. My name is Zach, and today we're cooking baby back ribs. Let's go. All right, guys, so today we're cooking baby back ribs. The great thing about ribs is there's like 100 different ways to cook them, and I actually use a few different methods. I'll do some long cooks sometimes, I'll do some short cooks. I've cooked ribs in 7 hours, I've cooked ribs in 2 hours before. It just depends kind of how much time I have as to what method I'm gonna use. Today I wanna show you guys a super tried and true, super simple method. The really good thing that I like about this method is you can even do this in the oven. So let's get started. Now my goal with this cook today was to show you guys a super easy recipe method that anybody can use. So all I'm using today is regular stuff that you can find at any grocery store. Here I've got one rack of baby back ribs. We're also going to be using a mild barbecue rub. Doesn't have to be Kinder's, but this I like using. We're going to be using mustard as our binder. And yes, mustard, and no, you will not taste it in the end result. Our sauce is going to be Sweet Baby Ray's, the tried and true. We've got some honey that we're going to be adding. We've got some dark brown sugar that we're going to be adding in. And then we got a sprayer full of apple juice. Let's do this. Okay, so here we have our rack of baby back ribs. What I like to look for when I'm picking out a rack at the store is one, make sure it's got some good meat on it. And two, these bones look like they're going relatively straight. Sometimes you'll get a rack where the bones run like this. They're going to cook and taste the same, but you want them straight. That's going to make it easier for cutting and make a better presentation. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim some of this excess off around over here and on this side, because I want my ribs to look nice and square and have a good presentation. So I got me a sharp knife here, and instead of cutting from the top, I'm always going to want to flip it over, cut it from the bottom. That way I can see the bones, see where I'm going to cut off. I'm gonna start about here. And this part, you can either cook it, discard it, kind of feel around, see where your bone starts and ends. Me personally, I like for my ribs to have a decent square to them, like so. Now up top, there's some fat. I'll trim a little bit of that off, but I know a lot of it's gonna render down during the cook. I do wanna try to get as much of this silver skin off as I can, because that will make for an unpleasant bite. Don't need to get it all, but like this guy right here, I want to get that out of there. And I'm not going to do too much more to the top. I personally like the fat. This guy right here, I'm going to trim that off. Okay, now on the back side. A very important thing with doing ribs, whether they're spare ribs, baby back ribs, beef ribs, you want to pull off this membrane. Now, what works best for me is I get a finger underneath between a bone and I pull up. And most of the time, I'm able to get it all just in one pull. We'll see if we're lucky today. Also, one thing that helps is getting a butter knife. Come right on top of the bone here, work that butter knife in there, create an opening like so, and then now I can work my finger in here. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm getting my finger in as far as I can here, and then I'm gonna go like so. See how it's already starting to come up there? Sorry, my dog's walking around. I'm sure you guys can hear his little paws. Okay, we've got it off of that side. And there you go. That's how you pull a membrane, folks. You'll see I do have paper towels right here. I keep paper towels handy just in case. Because of how slippery this is, it's hard to grab that membrane. You get a paper towel, you can grip it a lot harder. Okay, our ribs are trimmed up pretty decent. We're gonna get them seasoned. That'll be our next step. Okay guys, before we start seasoning, I wanna talk to you about a binder. I use mustard, and I know, like I said earlier, mustard, I'm telling you, you're not gonna taste it. The vinegar and the mustard helps break down the meat. This helps the rub stick. This is my go-to. I think you guys should either try this. It's up to you. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Let's get to seasoning. Now when I season, I like to start on the back side of the rib. Lay down a little bit of mustard. You don't need too much. I'm just gonna rub that in. Now I'm gonna come back over with my Kinder's mild barbecue rub. We're gonna go pretty generous on this. Make sure to get the top here and kind of press that in a little bit if you like. And again, another generous layer on top. Now I'm gonna let these ribs just hang out. I'm gonna let that seasoning really adhere to the meat, and we're gonna go out and start our Traeger up. All right, the Traeger's sitting at about 220. Looking good inside. We're using oak and hickory pellets today. Let's go check out and see how that seasoning's setting in. Okay, our ribs have been sitting for about 15 minutes with that rub on there. And you can see here, it's really starting to adhere to that meat. So we're gonna go ahead and put it on the Traeger. These babies on here, we're gonna put them to bed. We're gonna head inside and I'm gonna talk to you guys about what we're gonna do while these cook. Okay, so our ribs are out on the Traeger. The Traeger is set to 225. I know it's gonna jump between 215 and probably about 230, which is totally fine. They're gonna go for about 2 hours before we put them in the wrap. And by wrap, I mean wrap them up in foil, which we'll go over next. And while they're going right now, I'm gonna check them about every 30 minutes. And I have here a spray bottle full of apple juice and I'm gonna spray them down. I like to do this because I feel that it adds a little bit of sweetness to the rib, and it also helps build that bark that we want to build up before we put them in the wrap. Now we've been on for 30 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and hit it with a little spray down. Then we're going to do this every half hour for about 2 hours. Now we're about to go check on the ribs again, but before we do, I just wanted to remind you guys, this method can be done in your oven. Now you may not get the same smoky barbecue flavor that you would on a pellet smoker or a wood-fired smoker, but the ribs are still gonna turn out great. Just follow all the steps that I'm showing you today, the same temperatures, and you can hit them up in your oven. Let's go check these ribs. Okay, the ribs have been on for an hour and a half now, and I just sprayed them again. I noticed that it's cold out here today, so my temperature was running pretty low. So I jumped it up to 250, hoping that'll regulate out. Hey guys, so we're gonna go ahead and go over the method I like to use for wrapping the ribs. It's not always necessary to wrap the ribs. In fact, I don't even do it all the time, but when I do this method that I'm gonna be showing with you guys, I feel like it just takes them over the top just that little bit extra. Let's get started on preparing this wrap. Okay, so for our wrap, we're gonna use regular tin foil. And here I've got it double layered, so 2 layers of tin foil. You want enough foil to completely cover that rack of ribs. The first thing we're gonna do is put a layer down of our same barbecue rub. Now when I'm creating my base, I wanna keep in mind about how big my rack of ribs is. So I'm making a big enough base for that rack of ribs to sit on there. Next, we're gonna do some pats of butter. I usually do 4. They don't have to be too thick. I cut them, about 1/4 inch thick. Next, we're gonna do brown sugar. And I don't measure, I just put it on there what I think looks good. The thing with when you're doing a wrap like this is it's kind of up to you. Everybody has their own little secrets and methods that they swear is the best method out there. And I'm not saying this one's the best, but it works for me. Next, we're gonna use our honey. I have here a local honey. Any honey will work. And a lot of people also like to use agave, but I prefer honey. And all I'm doing is just doing a little drizzle, like so. All right, guys, we have this beautiful base laid down for our wrap. Let's pull this rack of ribs off and get it on here, and and I'll show you guys the next step. Ribs are ready to come off to go on the wrap. A method I like to use while getting my ribs off of here is I take a pair of tongs, slide them under as far as they'll go, carefully remove it over, get on a cookie sheet. That's a lot harder with one hand than it is with two. Let's get it inside. All right, we're back inside with our rack of ribs. We've got it sitting here. I'm gonna flip it over, meat side down, on top of the bottom layer of our wrap. Now we're sitting bone side up. I'm gonna repeat the same process I did on the bottom on the top. Layer of barbecue rub, our pounds of butter, our brown sugar, lastly our honey. Now we're gonna get everything folded up here to create almost a bowl. Okay. Now, lastly, I have here some Coca-Cola. I'm gonna go light over the top, and then we're gonna go on the side here. Now I used maybe a half a can of Coke for this. Now we're going to wrap the rack of ribs. Also keep in mind, I'm still meat side down at this point. Right now the bones are sticking up, as opposed to before when it was the meat up on the top side. Now we're meat side down. Let's get it back out on the Traeger. Okay, I got them back on the Traeger. And now I'm going to increase my temperature to 300 degrees. Okay, our ribs are wrapped up. They're back on the smoker at 300 degrees. I'm gonna let them go for about an hour. During this time, they're gonna be essentially baking all that goodness we put into the wrap back into the meat, keeping it nice and moist. After an hour, we're gonna unwrap it, and then we're gonna sauce them babies. Yeah. All right, we've been going for an hour covered. Let's get this little package opened up. Let's see how we're looking. That's hot. Looking good, looking good. I'm gonna go ahead and check our internal temp. Just hit 200 degrees. Which is just about where we want to be. So we're going to pull these out of the foil and we're going to sauce them up. Now, it's going to be hard to do one-handed. I'm going to see if I can make it happen here. Very carefully transfer out of the foil here. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and discard this foil and we'll be right back. All right, I got situated now, folks. So, bone side's still up. I'm gonna get some Sweet Baby Ray's on there. Now there are other sauces I like to use other than Sweet Baby Ray's, but this one is a good go-to and something you can find pretty much anywhere, which is why I wanted to use it for the video. I'm just using a little grill brush to brush the sauce on. I don't want to get in here between the bones. Every inch of this rack covered in sauce. Now we're just going to carefully flip it, bring it back towards us here, and we're going to hit the top. And again, we're going to brush. Now we're going to close up our Traeger. I'm going to back the heat down to 250. And I'm gonna let these go for 30 minutes. All right, guys, so we got another 30 minutes to go on these ribs. Now, you'll notice that when I check the temperature, they hit 200 internal temp. That means they're done. They're ready to eat at that point. But I wanted to sauce them. I really want that sauce to caramelize on there, so that's why after I sauced them, I dropped it down to 250. I don't want the internal temp to climb too much, but I do want that sauce to build a nice bark on there. Man, I can't wait to pull these off. They're gonna be smacking. All right, now you can see that sauce is really caramelized on there. These babies are dang near ready to eat. Let's get them inside on the cutting board. All right, now these ribs are really looking great. That sauce looks good. They're perfectly cooked. I'm gonna let them rest for a couple minutes, and when we do that, we'll do a quick recap. Now those ribs look great, and we're gonna cut into them in just a minute, but before we do, just to recap on what we did today, guys. So we got some baby back ribs, we seasoned them, we put them at 225 for 2 hours. We pulled them off, we wrapped, we used butter, brown sugar, honey, so a little bit of more barbecue rub on there. We put it back on at 300 for 1 hour. We pulled them out, we sauced, we went for 30 minutes at 250 just to let that sauce settle. And now it's time to eat. Let's do it. All right, we got our ribs looking beautiful. Now when I'm cutting ribs, I like to use a sharp serrated knife. The reason being is sometimes you're gonna have to cut through some gristle, maybe even a little bit of bone when you're slicing, so this is good to have. Also, we're meat side up here. When I'm cutting, I'm gonna wanna see where those bones are at. And the best way to do that for me is to flip them upside down. See, now I have a lot better idea of where the bones are sitting. I'm gonna start here in the middle and pull one out and see how they're tasting. Look at that. Nice, meaty baby back rib. Perfectly cooked. You can see we got a smoke ring around here. And look at that. Got some juice coming out. Nice and juicy. I got to get a bite of this thing. All right, I got the rest of these sliced up. These just look incredible. So dang good. I got to eat one. I can't wait anymore. Oh, man. That looks good. Steam still coming off there. Cheers, guys. It's a good rib. Clean bite through on that. Perfect. Oh yeah. That's good, guys. I gotta get the sauce off here. Now this right here is a good rib, guys. You make these, you're gonna be the star on your block. We didn't cook it for 7 hours. We didn't cook it for 6. We cooked these ribs in about 3.5, almost 4 hours. These are awesome. Please let me know what you guys think about the recipe. Have fun with it. It's barbecue. Enjoy it. Guys, please go follow me on Instagram at something_light_BBQ, something like barbecue. I'll keep the videos coming. I appreciate it, guys. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy your barbecue.